Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Oh my God, there's already people in the call. Can you let us know where you guys tuning in from? And I'm so excited for you for being here today. Today we have a very interesting session. As you know, these sessions are here to inspire students and creators worldwide, and we want them to connect with their inner minds, process, and by sharing, top artists, creators in the immersive experience industry. Every month, we're gonna talk with a creator in their industry live on YouTube, Twitch channels. Thank you so much for your help and contribution. Oh, nice! Virginia, Austria, New York, Paris, Phoenix. Oh, everywhere. Dominican Republic, Georgia. Thank you so much for being here. So today's session is about sound, and I love this. And I want to briefly introduce you to our guest today, Before Tigers, also known as Laurent Delforge. He's one of the visionary founders of Non Studios alongside with Thomas Vaquié and Simon Thierrée, based in Brussels. This Belgian music composer is widely acclaimed for his avant-garde creations and notable collaborations with the studios and artists such as Anti-VJ, Joanny Le Messier, Roman Tardy, FX, Onion Lab, and many, many others. Welcome, Laurent. Good to see you here. Welcome so much. Thank you so
Hi.
much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so as you know, Laurent and I, we've been friends for, how many years? 10 years already, right? Or
Years, I
more
think.
than
Yeah.
10 years. Yeah, yeah. We worked together a long time ago in an installation with light
Couple
and,
lab.
yeah, exactly, Coco Lab. And like I know his work from work well he was working at Anti-VJ. For those who have heard about Anti-VJ, this collective where they were kind of like pioneers in the work of video mapping and space and light, making installations. And I heard Laurent works when he was at Oaxaca, and we were working in this installation with some cactus, and they were video mapping this kind of like cactus in Mexico. And that's where we met, right in the middle of
Yeah, because you
work.
were also like actually proposing some work there with Coco
Yeah,
Lab at that
exactly.
time, right? Yeah, I
Yeah, yeah,
remember.
yeah, exactly.
That was a
And thank
cool.
you so much. Yeah, well, it was long, long, long time ago. And like all of the questions here are mainly based for the people to for the audience to be inspired about their work on installations and sound and art. And there's not so many artists coming from sound that got invited to this type of calls, because people
Yeah,
say
I guess.
like it's about visual, but for me is that or at least what I think is like the other day somebody was asking me about how much time is sorry how much value is the sound with an installation, and I always say it's like 60%. I always call it like even bigger than the actual visual, because if there is no sound, there is nothing. In depending on what you're doing, but for me, it's really
Yeah.
important, to think about sound. And the first question that I'm going to ask you, Laurent, like, how do you start with career in the immersive as a sound designer in the immersive design industry?
Actually, I first got into sound, like playing with sound and music, when I was around late teenage, like 17, and this led me somehow to study composition, music, and playing with sounds, especially electroacoustic music at the Royal Conservatory here in Belgium. And I don't know, one thing led to another, and I was like working on personal project for this school for the university, and I mean, the jury project, the end of the work, led me to meet people from the visual fields, choreographers, a contemporary dance choreographer that would be really interested in the type of sound I was doing, and then we started collaborate this way somehow. But I would say like my first interest came around like 16, 17 years old when I started to hear new music and new sounds, and then I thought like, whoa, I want to know how this is done. So this was the first thing.
And what was this moment when somehow you get or it get you inspired to get you started? You know, like, do you recall one specific moment? And I remember when you were off in Mexico, you were talking about this specific moment when you were a kid, and then your parents were playing music in your car for you.
Yeah,
Uh, can you let us know more about that moment?
yeah, for sure. I would say like it's probably depending on different moments in my life. And as you just mentioned it, when I was a kid, as a matter of fact, actually my parents were not musician at all. They were more like music lovers, and we used to listen to mostly classical music at home on Sundays. It was like a tradition for my father to blast some Stravinsky, Debussy on Sundays through the speakers. But when we would go down on holidays to France, for example, or taking the car, then the playlist was kind of different, and they would play some music from their time actually, because I'm a kid from the 80s, so I was raised and born there. So it was like the beginning of synth music and stuff like Vangelis, where I really recall being in the car looking at all the landscapes actually passing by with this incredible music made out of instruments I never heard before, sounds I never heard before, and I was amazed how I could start to let my thoughts and imagination really drift away. And so that was really like some sort of inspiration, because I didn't know like where these sounds were coming from, what type of image they would create in my head as, references or whatever. So I was really like going into space. And I guess I was first struck there with the power music has on your imagination. And that was probably like the first thing. And then I really thought like, okay, damn, I really want to know how to do this. Then of course my parent put me to music school, but it was very classical. And after 2 years, I started Kung Fu. So I didn't really keep on doing that. But after that, like during early teenage years, I went to music back again. And I met some people who introduced me to some, I don't know, electronic music as well, again, because I was more into like rock, garage stuff at first, Nirvana type of things, Rage Against the Machine. And then I drifted into jazz. I was a bass player, but really bad. I was like really not working so much about this. So, and I met this guy, and this guy introduced me to the music of Brian Eno, Steve Reich, Aphex Twin, Boards of Canada, Square Pusher, Outtaker, the whole War Ninja Tune catalog, and lots of other stuff. And there, I really also like realized how impactful music can be in emotions somehow, because some of these tracks really touched me, and they were very welcome at that time, because it was not like the best time of my life at that moment. So actually they really helped me to go through this moments. And I realized like, okay, this is like so powerful, this is really a thing I love, it's helping me, it helps me go through emotions in my life, it's giving me joy, pleasure. This thing, it's just air moving, but I want to know how to do this. And so I think it was like probably the first triggers.
And how was that transition between, working with composing music sound into working in large scale immersive installations and sound? Like, what is that process for you now, and working with this type of of
Installations.
work?
I mean, it's a very, very nice thing to do. I'm really happy I have the chance to do that as a job, first of all. But I would say in terms of process, it's really like depending on the project, and it's always a little bit different. If we speak about site-specific installation, for example, like this thing where we met in Oaxaca with the cactus and everything, I would say the process mostly always start with the space, because it's a site-specific thing. It's going to happen for just a few days in this place, and it has been designed and thought for this place. So I would say the first part of the process is put yourself into your audience shoes. And I'm very glad when I do have the chance actually to spend some time on location at first to get the inspiration, because this is where you can think, okay, people are going to be there. It's going to start like this. And so you can somehow start to shape some sort of narrative, imagine what it could be, depending on the place, because of course everything what you will bring, like the light, the projection, the sound, the speakers, the setup, will change the perception of the audience, but everything else as well, like the props, the technical aspects, but mostly like the environment will change their perception. So it's a very important thing to take in account. And I would say mostly it's the first inspiration kick for setting up like a first type of narrative in the creation. That's where it started.
And yeah, because sometimes it's hard to tell about what comes first, if the music or because if you work with in the cinema, you usually create the whole filming, and then you wait until you have this piece of video, and then you create
Mhm.
on top of that video the music, right? But while
Yeah.
working installation tend to be quite different.
Yeah, actually, when it's a lucky one, and what I really like is to actually really work as a collaborative process. So it might be that the music would start at first, like out of a discussion, like we know where we start, what is the beginning of our story, or the idea, or just like the type of universe we want to build, and maybe then I will start to work and shape some music there. But we would, most of the time I really like to work in ping pong, type of back and forth working process, because for many reasons actually. Because first of all, if I drive the thing with the music, this is super cool, but then we arrive at some point where you can go with the visuals, you shape them on top of the music, and then you have this logic that music has, that might be a tempo, that might be harmonies, that needs resolution or tension or whatever. But you arrive to a certain point where you actually agree with your partner to say, okay, now it's your turn. Actually, surprise me. Go with your world. Go with your After Effect timeline. Something that is totally different than my blocks and beats and whatever I thought. And this is really interesting because it's somehow like surprising me in my own creative process, so I don't get stuck into habits somehow. And I have to make it relevant, where we started with some musical part and now we are diving into another world that is actually guided by my collaborator, and this is super nice. It's very, I don't know, exciting also, creatively speaking, because you discover like happy accidents, or I don't know, new things you wouldn't have thought of if you were like keeping on doing your stuff by yourself. And I think if you do the reverse way, like, so it wouldn't be good if just the whole music is done by itself. I mean, it could be good, of course, and then you put some light design or stuff on top of it, but it would be a bit like video clip type of thing, music video thing. And on the other end, if the music comes totally at the end, the risk is that the sound and music, I believe, this is just my point of view, but become very illustrative. And it's just like a resonance of what we see exists through the sound. and it's more difficult actually to break this relationship if the whole timeline is already done with the whole visuals and everything. Then I'm gonna illustrate the thing at first, and maybe I'm gonna feel like stuck into this process. So
What I like about collaborating with you and working in the past in several projects is that it's not only about music, but you're kind of like an artist that takes the space and try to, drive emotions with the space. And this is something that I think some of the uh, roles that you're assigned, you're probably going to say like, oh, it's because you only do music, I only do music. But I think the interesting thing about working with this media is that you can actually, design the space, and you don't, actually need to do you don't absolutely need to do music. You can, like, go beyond that, go beyond music.
yeah, for sure. But I mean, there is more like this is something I guess we all share with the people at non-studio. Is more like all sound for us is music somehow, and music is sound, and it's a whole thing merged together, making one. And it's very interesting also to know through a piece, through a narrative, depending on the project, may that be like for cinema, may that be for a dance piece or a immersive installation, but to know what do you want from what you create, from the music actually, to give as a plus in the story somehow. And sometimes it doesn't need more than just putting like the space into some sonic scenography, and it helps if you work with dancers for contemporary dance performances and you just work into a black box. Actually the whole sound can create the full scenography, and this is something really interesting, because then it's just part as the decor somehow, and it's like pretty free to open to interpretation, because it's just sound. So maybe like people will interpret the thing like differently. Some people will hear something, some people will hear other stuff, and this is what I kind of like. It makes the thing interactive. I like to blur the lines a little bit, so we are not totally sure that we are in a tropical forest, but maybe somewhere else in space. I don't know.
And where do you get your inspiration for, creating these new sounds?
Um, I don't know. It really depends. I listen to a lot of music most of the time, like between creative process. And when I get really into some artists, I'm often like feeling, wow, this is really interesting. And of course, I'm making music, so I listen to it with a little bit of an analytic earring. But I feel it may start as an inspiration as well. So it pulls me somewhere, like it gives me a drive, like, oh, I want to try something like this. And maybe it's like totally wrong, because somehow I think that person maybe made this record or this song in this way with weird bongos into a flanger pedal, recording it in the bathroom, and suddenly it sounds like amazing for me. But maybe she didn't do that at all, or he didn't do that at all. But then it will like trigger an idea just for me, and then I will set up a microphone into the bathroom, put some bongos, and have like flanger pedal or whatever. So this, like, the transformation of what I think has been done in this inspirational track might be a trigger to create something. But what I also like is to play a little bit with restriction. So just start with something thinking like, okay, I'm going to start with just that type of sound. I just want to make something with like the sound of breath or a voice or whatever. And I restrict myself a little bit. And out of the process, I actually get a lot of inspiration out of the process, because I mean, with my studies and everything, and this is really something that I kind of like. I don't plan everything, but I really like to get surprised by the process and actually to jump onto it, even if it was not planned. And somehow, yeah, that's where it comes from.
And do you, speaking about process, do you have any specific process when you're working? Because I know it depends of the type of work that you're creating, right? Wherever you're working for for an immersive experience, or you're making for a film. But
Yeah.
is there a specific process that you might recall that you try to do when you're working into with sound and design?
Not especially, because also, I mean, I have some things that are coming back sometimes, like tips and tricks that I reuse, but somehow I'm always like trying to dig into new things, which might be a bit messy as well, but because I get a lot of joy out of it, because it feels like a discovery. I don't really do exactly the same thing. I don't have like a precise process, because otherwise, if I do so, sometimes it feels like, okay, I'm just redoing the same thing I did in the past already before. So I kind of need to put some more spices, some more ingredients. So I would say definitely depending on the project, the process would change. And this is also something that, I mean, the ideas are coming out or up out of the discussion you have with your collaborator. For example, like a very interesting thing that we are exploring right now with Joanie is this whole nerdy world of generative music, and this is something I'm really into right now. But this is a process. There is a process, of course, there, but it mixes both worlds, because my process is to build an architecture, and I build the architecture, and at some point, after a few hours of building this sonic architecture, I just hit spacebar and I just listen to this thing, and it goes wild. And actually, I didn't control anything. I didn't even compose anything. I'm just surprised by the thing. And somehow, yeah, it was just the restriction to say, you are not going to compose the music. You are just going to think about one architecture, and this will stand for a landscape, let's say, whatever. And then we'll see what we do with that. But I kind of need to be surprised in the process all the time. This is where I really get like a connection with the sounds I make myself, and I feel like, wow, this is cool. And when I listen to these things back, I feel like, yeah, I remember, or maybe I don't remember, but I remember, yeah, it was like a very experimental session. I don't know how I did it, but it was a happy accident or a very good discovery. So process is changing for every project, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. And how's failure or apparent failure has set up you for later success? Do you have a favorite uh, failure of yours?
Uh, yes, my life probably, but I would say like failure is part of my daily routine. This is something that, as I just mentioned, I don't really see it as a dramatic thing, like failure. Yeah, if we take my life for example, I made a lot of bad choices, but I'm pretty happy with the man I am right now, or the human being, or whatever. And it's the same in creation, I would say. And somehow it's really part of the process as well, because I like to be surprised. So somehow I think I really push myself to failure sometimes, like to get these happy accidents that I'm not in control. Actually, I cannot really say I'm the one who did that. No, it happened because I broke the thing, or whatever somehow. But I create this thing because then I have like a very childish kind of relationship with it, and somehow failure is really part of the process, and it's a very important thing in creation, because this is also like in the materiology of the sound. This is something that I really like a broken tape recorder or whatever. The randomness, the not the anti-perfect thing is telling a lot about the history. We are not like perfect. We are not like plastic people. This is something. It's like what you carry with it, and I I really like it somehow. But if I have like a very personal failure that I like, actually, when I it's not really a failure, but actually when I finished my studies, I had to. It was like composition studies, so it was full university. It ends up in front of a jury of very known and serious composers. that are judging your music in front of everyone in an auditorium. And I put a lot of work into that last piece for the jury, and I was like really proud. I mean, it was like bringing some sounds for from travels, from sessions I made with friends and everything. So all these sounds, it was nothing like you could download on the internet, because at that time it was, you had to do all your sounds, impossible to find high-end samples or whatever. But so I put a lot of time, energy, and love and personal feelings into that creation. The jury went a bit harsh on me at the end, even though I got my master degree. But then after that jury, I went to my grandmother at that time, that I really respected, because she was a very great lady. And I was like so proud of this song, of this track, like pretty much experimental. But that I went to her and I was like, "Oh, grandma, I want to make you listen to this track." And so I went to her and we listened to that thing, and then she looked at me like almost like totally crying, like, "Damn, Laurent, what is this? I didn't know that it was going so bad in your head, you know?" Like, I was like, "Oh, damn, no, no, no." It's like it's all cool. I'm proud of this thing. And the funny fact is that, yeah, somehow my grandmother didn't get the thing. Yeah, obviously she was more into, like, I don't know, meditative, very soft music with the siren songs and stuff like this. And the funny part is actually this last track, where I mean the jury work, where I put like a lot of personal thing in, caught the attention of these guys from NTVJ at that time, and also went through the first choreographer I worked with, and it was used like for the first choreographical piece and the first collaboration I did with Romain. And it was really fun also, like, to see, okay, my grandmother thought it was like very violent, very weird, very experimental. She was really scared and worried about my brain, but somehow it was really nice also to see this piece, maybe harsh to exist by itself, because of course this is not the thing you would put in the background if you invite your in-laws for a dinner or whatever. I mean, it would set a pretty weird mood. But it was really fun to see, for example, when this choreographer from Barcelona used this track, to see like old people also being in the front row. And because there were people dancing on this music, they were receiving this really harsh sound in the face. But with the movements and with the collaboration of another artistic medium, suddenly it became something totally different. And it was accessible to people who were probably just like my grandmother at that time. So yeah, I failed the grandma test, but somehow it led me somewhere else. It was cool.
Well, this is how I get to know you, right?
It's true.
Okay, so before we continue, I only have a. I'm gonna take just a couple of minutes to talk about the HQ, but later I want to check what you have in the back
Ah, yeah.
of all of the instruments, right? So for those who are tuning in, the Interactive and Immersive HQ Pro is the only school for immersive designers, creative technologies, and touch designer artists and developers. And we have over 60 full top designer creative technology video courses. That's kind of like 170 plus hours of content. We have a private Facebook group where coaches like Matthew Ragan and Elburs can answer to questions. We also hold some internal accelerator sessions, workshops featuring all of the top top designer pros, but also uh, teachers on the HQ. We have over 120 custom built Touch Designer tools, project files, templates. There is the only certification program for interactive and tech and media professionals. And it's right now it's a 7-day trial if you want to take out. We work a lot last since 2 years. We've been updating a lot of the content inside of the HQ Pro. Okay, so go back to you, Laurent. Let us know what do you have back there, and in terms of instruments, like what's your favorite gear that you have back there?
What is my favorite gear? I don't know. I kind of like all of them. I mean, I do like the tape machine. I don't know. It feels like maybe I froze, or I don't know if it's just my screen.
You're
But
good.
yeah,
You're good.
I'm good. Okay, cool. I mean, I love this tape machine, the Revox, all the synths. But the main thing is actually this. I don't know if you can see it. Is the mixer, because this is where everything goes. So I do like this tape recorder, because this is where I put like all the sounds at some point. If they sound like too clean, once again, this is where I would put them, so they feel like, okay, first of all, I have no access afterwards. They are recorded on the tape, so I have to deal with it. So I kind of like this restriction somehow, but also it's a magical tool. I mean, all people like pretty fanatic about studios, they know like tape has some magic about compression, distortion, saturation that brings it to another dreamy level somehow.
What,
And
what
yeah,
do you mean about if it is too clean? Like, for example, like you have a sound and then it sounds too perfect, and then take it
yeah,
onto the tape.
yeah, because actually most of the gear you see here, and there's like still plenty, it's pretty much like analog studio. So there's many of modular geeky stuff all around me here. And what I like is, once again, like these little accidents that can go through this. When you work with digital, this is like super perfect. But when you play a loop on a DAW, and it's going to be always the same. I don't know if you know the music of William Basinski, who's made this disintegration loop, like a full thing, like the same loop recorded on the same tape back and back again, and then you see how it morphs into something like totally different. I kind of like this morphing aspect of it. And I mean, I love digital world as well for shaping very precise and handcraft stuff when I need it. I need to sound like I need it to sound like super sharp on a good sound system, and I know it's gonna sound well. But in the process, sometimes I have this relationship with sounds. I have this thing like, okay, I like you, but I don't love you yet, really. So we have to work that out. So this is something, and then I propose like a little journey to this sound to go like through these machines or this gear setup. And of course, through analog processing, you would add a lot of unpredictable mistakes, not mistakes, but like changes. And this is something I like. And I also like the fact that at some point, if I record like multi-tracks on a tape, this is what I have to deal with afterwards. There is no like Command Z, whatever, and it's a bit old school, but somehow it's once again like working with restriction. And if I feel, wow, this sound actually has something to tell, and then I work with it.
And which gadget that you have there, it's one of your favorites right now?
Right now, one of my favorite is actually right now another one that is there. I don't know if you see it. We don't see it in the dark, but
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
it's a TX7. It's one of the favorite synths of Brian Eno, and it's a very nice. I just like got this. This is for the nerdy talk, but these Max for Live editor little piece of software that actually allow me to edit the thing on the go. And I don't know, this thing has I mean, definitely because I'm a kids from the 80s, but it has like a soul behind that really, I don't know, it touches me. It has like a depth, very important depth. But I would say the thing I love the most is the microphone, I would say anyways, because I always have to end up recording sounds that were not designed by other people. And so to make sure that this is definitely a personal piece, and this sound only existed once, and I did it by myself or with friends or whatever, this is really an important thing for me.
Is there any technology that you're excited about, related with audio and music that it's currently now happening?
Um, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty, as I told you, like I'm pretty excited about the generative aspect of composing music, but lately I don't know, and so I mean I work mostly with Ableton right now and Max for Live things, and I feel like wow, the possibilities there are infinite. Still, I didn't finish, but also to explore all of it. But also, if you like bring this very technological piece of routing, of triggering elements in a very random way, or but still you need like to build the architecture in a proper way, and you implement this in a more analog um, environment. I feel wow, there is like a lot of, so it's like I love this new gear, these new possibilities softwares are bringing, like all this community into the Max Object and the Max for Live thing is really insane. Ableton is doing like an insane work at making this software so modular. But when you plug it into another type of environment, this is where wow, there is really something very interesting. So I would say I would go as much into technology as into the past, the new technology as in the past technology. I like to mix them both because somehow it makes the sound a little bit less temporal. I don't know if that's a word, but you blur the lines. You don't really know if this sound is coming from the past, if it's coming from the future, if it's coming from the present, and this is something I like. A little bit like an old record of Miles Davis, like in a silent way. This will be eternal. This would work, and the sound is just electric, but it could be done the same way now as well, and it will like go through time. I don't know. This is somehow a quest.
And what advice would you give to musicians who are just starting to work with installations and immersive experience industry?
No, I would say it's a funny thing because actually I do teach in from time to time in several schools, and it's funny because sometimes like students they ask me like, yes, are you just a teacher or do you actually make a living out of this music? So it shows how, I mean, how real is this question? Like, is it possible to do it? Is it possible to reach, to live out of it and to do it as a real job, somehow? And what I say to them most of the time is more like, I do believe that if you keep yourself, if you have a goal and you just like aim towards this goal and you keep on going towards it, like every day, this is you're aiming towards it, you will actually reach it anyhow, and no matter how long it will take. Maybe for some it will take like a few months, maybe for you it will take like a few years, but it doesn't matter because actually you will put all your energy into this goal and you will reach it. So like tenacity is a very important thing for me. I believe more in tenacity than in talent somehow, because I don't really believe in talent. But it's more like if you keep this idea, actually all everything, like the energy you put in it, like the karma or the people you will meet will be around this goal. So you will reach it at some point. And maybe because once you reach it, you will have like to need another goal. So also like think about the path, the this path, like the journey who led you there, and let yourself be surprised by it. Like don't fix it like too much, because don't snub like opportunities or people around you, because it can lead to you don't know what kind of project or whatever. And somehow this is really like the story of what I did. And so yeah, I would say like keep it up, keep on going for it, and you reach it. And the most important thing, I really like to say also to some students, is for me like trust your intuitions, because this is what makes you like super unique. We all like come from a different background. I had this father was listening to Stravinsky, Debussy, or whatever, but it has a print on me somehow, and then I listened to this 80s synth thing. But everyone is unique in their story, in their backpack, everything they carry. And if you trust your intuition, because if at some point you realize like, wow, you make something, it sounds good, but you're a bit scared because maybe it sounds like something you never heard before, and you're not sure, like, is it right or wrong? This is definitely where you have to dig, because I think it takes a lot of courage to go there. But I do believe we know when we are touching something special, and it's a very hard thing also, like, to find this very personal thing that we all have, and to be able to have the courage to put it out there to be shared with the audience. So I would say that.
I think when you say something personal, kind of like reflects into the sound as well. Like when I hear your compositions, I can literally say like, oh my god, this is so Laurent, the way this has been composed, right? And it's
Yeah.
incredible. I'm going to share really quick with the audience here a link from the Arc, which is one of
Oh yeah.
the videos that we were discussing, which is this like experience in Mexico City with some cactus from Anti-VJ that you were collaborating working with.
Yeah, with Romain.
And this exactly. So this is kind of like interesting to see about the uniqueness of the sounds, right? And what is your experience about you building in the studio? Like to formalize it, not just being just one person, but right now you're part of the studio.
You mean really like building a studio in terms
Yeah.
of how to plug your machines together or work together as
Uh,
a team?
as a team, yeah, as a team.
As a team.
Because like one side is like I can have my own studio at my home, but I can still have my own studio at home, but it can be more professionalized. I'm working with more people and manage a bit more of people that it's in the studio. Like how is this next step
Yeah.
going for you?
I mean, if we speak about None, for example, we like the subtitle is a Sony Creative Lab. And this is like a name I kind of like because this is more a place like a playground, a place where we experiment. And building a studio in this way, especially for sound, because somehow it's difficult to work like with a lot of people onto one sound creation, because we cannot like make sound at the same time into the same space, so it's like we could like have people working on the sound design aspects, on the melodic aspects, on the mixing and everything, but somehow as all these parts are really like merged together, it's somehow like, I don't know, you don't really work so much into one creation together, but you give space for ideas, and it's more about sharing, and sometimes like also like knowing where are your limits, and surround yourself with people that are really good at what they do, but you are not. And that's like better to work with them and create like a relationship. It's like with Simon, he's like a orchestra director, and it's like so nice when we have to compose for orchestras or instruments. Of course we bring out some ideas, and it's been like a long time now we work together, so he knows what I like as well, in terms of harmonies or sensitivity or whatever, but he's also there to tell me what is possible or not. And it's like telling me, sometimes I just come up with some ideas and it's just like, yeah, Laurent, this is really cool, but actually no human being can play this thing, so we will reshape the score. And it's really nice to actually more share experience, share point of view. And this is the great thing about the studio. It's more like how it shapes your creative process, your vision, because you discuss about it together. And I don't know, no later than like a few days ago, we were with Thomas listening to something. I hope he's going to release it really soon, but he went into a crazy path journey of making music, and I never heard anything like this in my life. And I was like, this was just so inspiring, like to hear this type of, it was like a full forest of sound, but it's a full composition, a creation that looks like a trip on peyote, or this is the name of the track actually. But it's really like, and suddenly it gives you like so much inspiration also just to share, you know. And this is like the very important thing in a studio, I would say. It's more like the dynamic between the creative people, and the most important thing, rather than how you plug your gear together.
Cool. I'm gonna jump into some questions from an audience.
Yeah,
There's
sure.
one question here about how do you get into this career after graduating from your university?
How did I get into this career after university? Um,
Yes.
yeah, keeping the same goal, because actually, to be honest, I finished these studies, so I had a master degree. And so I went like really proud with my little track to all the studios, sound design studios all around Belgium, and also like in France or around like in Europe. And I got like a lot of positive feedback, but a very common one is that I had like a master 5 year study degree, and all of them, they said, okay, yeah, look, it sounds really good what you do. That would be super cool to work together. But you know what? Actually, we would have to pay you too much. So actually, we prefer to hire someone who didn't do this 5 year study. So I ended up like going back working in a bar after. But on the side, I kept on doing things. And as I told you, actually, this motivation led me to work with choreographers and these guys from NTVJ, because I really put my heart into it. And then eventually people see that, feel that, and this is how it got there. And from one project to another, I really believe into human connection, because you move, you work with people, you create residencies, you meet new people, and through human contact, actually, you present your work in festivals, you encounter new artists, and then actually they get interested into your work. Then you start new collaboration, and from there, actually, I don't think I kept working on that bar for super long, but it was not really a problem for me. It was really more like, okay, it's cool, I can work in a bar, but on the side, I will definitely continue to make like weird live shows and work in the studio.
Somebody's asking if you teach private lessons of sound design and music production.
I do that sometimes, yes, but yeah, I kind of like to make it sometimes just a one shot, but it takes a lot of time also, like to teach. And I really love it to share like with students. This is really a important thing for me also, because they do have the time to hang out way more than me into Reddit threads and know about all the plugins and everything. So I get like loads of good information out of them. But yeah, I do that from time to time, but I cannot do it like so much, because otherwise I still need like some time for research also, and I'm sometimes like really struggling also just to find some time by myself in the studio without any project, and just to start something from scratch.
And finally, what's next for you and your studio?
What are the upcoming projects, you mean? Yeah,
Correct. Yes.
I mean, you must know, because we are working together on a immersive installation in Mexico City. So this one, I don't really know exactly when it's gonna be open, but yeah, this is a thing I'm actually pretty much working on right now, and we have to actually discuss it after this call. There is a new project, actually not a new project, but a new version of it with Studio Joanie Lemercier, where we actually experiment again with our geeky generative process. This is going to happen for the Fête des Lumières in Lyon. And it's based on a piece called All the Trees, and it's laser projection on trees actually, and the whole sound will be like generative. And this time actually we built something where probably lasers will change depending on the sound, so there would be like a lot of audio reactivity thing, but we are still like shaping it. So there is this thing. It's a bit like the moment of immersive space. I have the feeling, because we do have a project also for a forthcoming immersive space in Barcelona with the good team of Onion Lab. So this should come somewhere early next year. And I work for another one with a friend called Kola Tyrol Studio for a new immersive space in Kuala Lumpur. Actually, we are working on a new piece there with a dancer as well, and this will be in February. So we keep on getting like pretty busy, I guess, and things are keeping on moving. But for the studio, actually, yeah, we started to collaborate now with actually Nicola Boric, who's based in Barcelona, who is the former manager of NTVJ. We'll see where it goes, but it's like a little step for us there. And I don't know, I would love to find some times maybe like to release music. So maybe the studio could have a little side project that would be a record label, pretty humble, but pretty inviting for people to listen, or make like listening parties, put people in very special conditions, but maybe make it more like a blackout session, like more just about the sonic sensory experience. This I would love.
Thank you so much, Laurent. So, for those who doesn't know his work, please check out the link that we just posted there, and also follow him with his Instagram account. It's very
Because we are
impressive.
so
All of
bad.
the
We are so bad
yeah,
at communication.
but the work, it's impressive. Like all these huge experiences that you guys have been working on. It's impressive. So check out their work. And thank you so much, guys, for being here. And until the next one. Thank you, Laurent.
Bye. Thanks, Josue.